Tato Cat and welcome to my channel. Today we are playing The Letter. Previously, after Ash runs into Luke right at the police station, we decide to not hit him and yell at him instead, and then Isabella decides to throw water at Luke instead of hitting him because it doesn't leave a mark, and thus it's okay. But now Ash is like, well, she might be a little screwed now. And and Rebecca finally called us, and she's waiting for the two of them here at the apartments. And that's pretty much where we left off. And it moved a little forward on accident, so I'm just going to reload that. There we go. We find her, let's get started. We found her pacing in front of Isabella's room, hands clasped tightly in front of her as she treads the small space offering by the hallway. The second she looks up, Isabella clings to her.
I'm so glad you're okay. Ashton checked on you this morning, but... He did?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was in a hurry. I didn't have time to drop by and let you know.
It doesn't matter. What's important is you're here.
Not burnt to a crisp or brutally murdered somewhere. Whole. Alive. Although she seems a bit shaken, it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. At least now I can relax, ease the pressure off my shoulders, if only by some. There's still that problem with Zach. But the minute Isabella pulls away from her, she winces. A small reaction. The younger woman doesn't even catch it. It sets a precedence for careful observation. Nevertheless, a closer look at her reveals a much more disheveled than usual hair in a bit of a mess, probably flattened in a hurry. The back of her dress also shows stains of dirt in places it rarely gets into. She also is leaning more on using her left arm. She's right-handed. Perhaps the most telling is the slight limp she has, noticeable once Isabella leads us into her apartment. It all sprouts a hatful of questions. What kind of hat? 'Cause not all hats are that big, you know? They're very shallow hats, and then there are those top hats that you could put lots of questions in those. You gotta be more specific with these things. What exactly happened, and how she ended up in that state? Pretty sure a simple trip to the library wouldn't do that. But she never gives me a chance to bring it up. The second we're seated in the tiny living room, she gets straight to the point and asks about Zach. Typical Rebecca.
All right, no more suspense. What happened to Zachary? And I don't want the two of you to mince words. Tell everything as it is.
They arrested him, Becca.
Arrested? As in the police?
No. As in the kinky flying monkey circus. Yes, the police. Who else would arrest somebody?
Yeah. Ashton just heard about it this morning.
Her eyes quickly zero in on me, and at the raise of her eyebrow and her question, I quickly fill her in on what happened. From the moment I've gotten the news down to the very person at the root of this trouble. The very person, story updated, the very person she's been friends with from the start. She falters the second I drop the scumbag's name, disbelief all over her features.
Are you sure it's him? This must be a mistake.
Yup, quite sure it's the bastard we saw at the precinct, in all his pompous glory.
What was Zachary even doing in the mansion?
That's not really important, okay? I mean, I guess it is, but it's not in the scheme of things. But I mean, like, from a legal perspective, it is.
Breaking and entering? Are you kidding me? I know Zachary can look a bit intimidating at first glance, but he's not the kind of person who will do those things.
Also, he didn't really break anything. It was kind of entering. Yeah.
That's exactly what we told the police. But they won't listen. Apparently they caught him in the act.
Of course they won't. They're up against Wright's smug face, for fuck's sake. He's the one who has the money.
There must be something we can do to help him.
I'm still up for kicking his ass if anyone's asking.
Not that. Anything but that.
Well, you should have said that earlier.
Oh, come on, you threw water at him. At least let me score.
We need something that'll help, Zach. If you really want to hurt something, go punch the wall or your face.
It's a little bit difficult to punch your own face.
I'll talk to him.
Immediately, all the banter in the room stops, and we both turn to her.
Talk to who?
The douchebag.
Luke, I'm sure he'll see reason.
She wastes no time, ignoring her limp. She gathers her things and stands up, ready to leave. Aren't we supposed to talk about the ghost? Why isn't this happening? Yes, Zach's important, but there's a ghost lady who's trying to murder all of us. And no one's talking about it. Did they ever think that maybe the reason why he got arrested was because of the ghost? It's just so frustrating. I grab for her arm before she can walk away, past. Even carefully to avoid hurting her, in case there really is an injury. Seems like it at first glance, but you can't be sure until after a careful examination has been made. I suspect some bruisings, at least, although minor internal fractures aren't out of the equation. They have a nasty way of staying hidden. That possible injury is the least of my problems right now. Not when she's likely planning a march into the Ermengarde Mansion just to talk to the guy. And I have a slew of opinions about that plan. Do you really think he'll listen? Don't be rash.
Becca,
Don't
this
be
thing
rash.
with Zach has already gone down the legal territory.
Saying, do you really think he'll listen? I don't think it's going to really make her see things differently. Okay. Yay, positive reaction. Okay, good.
Smugface already filed a case this morning.
Isn't that another reason to talk to him?
It'll be difficult, especially when he's so eager to get to the precinct this morning. Unless we find evidence that'll prove Zach's innocence, there's nothing we can do at the moment. Chief will kick me out of my own precinct if I keep insisting.
Becca does give it a moment of thought. She still appears like she wants to run head first to Anselm, though. But after a minute of silence, thankfully, she concedes.
All right, but promise me you'll get Zachary out of that place.
If we live, yeah, we'll try.
I will. There's no way in hell I'm leaving him in there.
If he lives, yeah, we'll try.
Besides, even if you could reason with Smugface,
Stop calling him like that. And you wonder why he won't listen.
'Cause he's a smug face.
even if you could reason with Smugface, you're not going anywhere with that limp.
As expected, she tries to hide it. When she squirms from my grasp, it's with enough force she almost stumbled back if the couch has not caught her fall. Even with Isabella shooting her concerned looks, she's swift to shrug it off.
It's fine. I just had a little accident.
Little accident. Hard to believe when her other arm's nursing this supposedly fine arm. Isabella doesn't buy any of it either.
In a library?
Yeah, nerd wars.
Well, yeah, it kinda caught me off guard.
I mean, it is entirely possible if you are clumsy enough. Say, like, somebody's coming through and there really isn't enough room, so you try to back up and then you back up too far into the bookshelf and then the books fall on you. Or you're not paying attention and you trip over a pile of books and you fall into a table. Not saying that these things have happened to me, but possibilities of getting injured into a library, tripping over a child, all things that could happen.
Something's happened there, hasn't it?
I don't have to elaborate on the question any further. Shortly, she goes very still, and the hand placed over her right arm shifts ever so slightly, its grip on the limb tightening. Not too firm to hurt, but just enough for a gesture of comfort for herself. Warily, she casts a glance at everyone in the room. But the only one she spares for Isabella lingers longer, and in that moment, something unspoken passes between them. An understanding. It strikes me seconds later how utterly familiar her expression is the same one I've seen far too many times in Isabella. Since that day at the movie house, every time her attempt to warn us have been so rudely dismissed.
Let me see.
Can we? We have to check if it's bad.
Rebecca hesitates for a moment. Then after a minute of consideration, she sighs and reaches for the hem of her sleeve, raises it just enough for Isabel to take a good look at it. Not swollen, but a large portion of her skin's starting to turn an ugly shade of purple.
Oh, ouch. That bruise isn't going to look pretty.
Tell me about it. It was a library cart that hit me. The old metal ones they keep near the history section.
But she's there? She went after you.
Yeah, I was in the archives, looking something up. Suddenly, she was just there. Well, she was using my own students against me. What kind of terrible person does that?
A dead ghost person bent on revenge.
Oh, it makes my blood boil.
You should have just ran. That woman's not something you can hit with a book.
Not that I'm a fan of Becca, but she did actually hit her with the book. It was wonderful. I want to, have a smite book, a smote book, a book for smiting people. It would both, have a list of people that I want to smote. But also, it could also be the thing I smote them with. It would be fantastic. And have two uses. To smote and to keep track of said smote people. Smoties. Smoted. Smotable candidates. Smiteable candidates.
Laugh it up, Ashton. I did. Then the bloody cart came out of nowhere. And you know what? If it weren't for a damn book, I would be dead by now.
Journal updated. Okay. Let's just look at the journal. A lot is happening on this day. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, here it is. To Ashton and Isabella's relief, Rebecca later called back. They found her at the Solemnwell. At Solemnwell, that makes more sense. Looking worse for the wear. But soon learned of Zachary's situation. She decided to confront Luke right on an idea Ashton begged her to reconsider. Fortunately, before the topic turned grim, Isabella stepped in. Cool. It's kind of awkward reading that side of the journal. Have a whole thing in the way. Silence descended in the room as the gravity of that one word hits all of us. The gravity of that one word. Dead. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Another close call. Another would have. Another one we've narrowly avoided. How long can we keep this up? We're bound to break at one point. I did. No normal human being with a sane mind can last like this. It's a miracle Isabella hasn't cracked yet. After all, she was the one who found that letter. I've expected her to have caved in by now, yet her voice, calm and composed in the face of this, is what cuts through the thick air.
I'll go get a cold compress for that arm. You guys take a seat first. Ashton and I, we have a lot of things to talk about.
That marks the end of it. At least, for the time being. And as soon as Isabella returns and hands Rebecca the cold compress, I promise we get straight down to business. Surprisingly, easy considering the rigid air in the room. Although there's some tense fumbling for words at first, the whole conversation gains steam once what we found last night at BRC has been put on the table. All at once, everything we've brushed off, carelessly ignored, and rudely dismissed have been laid out for close scrutiny. Our own encounters with a woman, Rebecca's close brushes with death every time she appears, the dread, the fear, the terror she brings out even in the bravest of us, everything. Because no matter how bleak this all seems, there must still be a way out of this. There has to be logic. There has to be. Logic be damned. Or at least that's what Isabella and I would like to believe. October 30th, Sunday, still October 30th. Man, this is a long night, ... Yet, even as the cold morning light shifts to the warmth hues of late afternoon and eventually night, none of this still makes a fucking damn sense. Darkness has fallen, but we're still nowhere near figuring things out. If anything, we're more at a loss than we've ever been before we've even started this. The next thing I know, frustration rears its ugly head. And the sheets of paper I've been holding smack the table harder than I've intended. The sound of it echoes loudly in the small room, and everyone simply falls silent. Along with it is a release of another long-held breath. Perhaps the 100th since this morning.
We aren't getting anywhere at this rate.
Don't just drop it. There must be something in this we aren't seeing yet.
Ash, please. Zach wouldn't want us to give up on this.
It's an odd thing to hear from her. The very words I've been telling myself every single time I find myself facing a dead end. We can't use a little of the optimism. We can use a little optimism right now, I guess. Too bad Z-Man's better at it than me.
I know, but what are we supposed to be looking at here in the first place?
Well, you already looked through those files. You're the one that picked it out last night, right?
All of them? I'm pretty sure every person we've checked in there isn't necessarily involved. One client possibly died of old age. Remember, you found that dumb paper right before the open house. No one was allowed inside that place for a time that day. It's too broad of a scope if we include every single person. In fact, the only notable ones are C and Jean Marie.
But if we're going to include them in the count, shouldn't there have been more than enough people to end this fucking curse already? How does this thing even work?
Yeah, okay. They went in and out of this place. But no, you still don't get it. What I'm trying to say about those clients is...
Maybe there's something more to this.
What do you mean?
Becca makes a vague gesture at the paper she's brought, then crosses her arm and leans back on her seat to glare at it. The way she's staring at it, you'll think she wants to set the entire stack on fire.
Apparently, there was some stuff that people haven't been telling us.
You mean our own teachers have been lying to us all this time?
Hey, now don't blame us. Blame the bloody books they wrote.
Quietly, Isabella reaches for one of the papers Rebecca's brought with her, and carefully inspects the words printed on the page. A copy of an old newsprint from even before the city has been founded. Her eyes narrows with each line it passes, but lingers at the illustration of the noblewoman servant.
Why do they have to keep this in the restricted section?
That is true. Why is it restricted? Why are they hiding it? There's something more to that if it's in the restricted section. Rebecca merely shrugs in her inquiry, but her own annoyance seeps through her answer.
How should I know? I wasn't even aware we have archives that go as far back as this. This is before the city was even founded. As a matter of fact, if it weren't for Andrew's help, I wouldn't have gotten my hands on any of it. Maybe they didn't think it would be important to talk about it. After all, this is more Anselm's than ours.
That or some old bugger's hiding something.
Why else would these tell a completely different story? Revising what's written seems a useless endeavor on its own when you have nothing to gain from it. Thanks to those, we're also missing a lot of things here. There's still a gap. A huge one. Even with the information we currently have right now, it still feels like there's something we're overlooking. All we have to go with is the mansion, the letter, and all the stuff selfish people have been keeping from the public. But what else? At present, everything seems to point to where this all started. The Ermengarde Mansion. Will bringing the letter back there fix everything? Fuck. How do I... The mansion's private property now. Can't just waltz in there. I'd rather die before I even think of begging Bright to let me in and investigate the place. After what he did to Zach, not gonna happen over my dead body. One thing's very clear after these last 2 days, however. We're not safe anywhere, and I have to act fast if I want to keep my friends alive. We can't keep running away. Sooner or later, she'll get us. And damn it, I hope Zach's safe where they're keeping him. There are guards stationed at the holding cells 24/7, but you can't be sure. This is a ghost we're up against. Before anything happens, I have to put an end to this. Sighing, I stand up and stretch out the kinks in my back after several hours of sitting. We've been at this for too long. A break is needed. Time to let everything to sink in, or else we'll all burn out. I know I will, and it's another thing I cannot let happen when they're all counting on me like this. Albeit unspoken, it's their eyes as they look up at me waiting. You've been at this since morning. We should take a break for a few. Uh-oh. That's not good. The rest of it never makes it out of my mouth as something heavy and grating sounds from the far end of the room. A harsh booming noise ringing through the eardrums of everyone in the room all at once. The two of them are on their feet. I quickly palm for my gun on the table. Again? Really? You gonna shoot at the ghost again because I worked out so well the first time you did it? However, before I can pull it up and remove the safety, the whole racket stops. Stillness descends in the room, and amidst the sudden hush, the three of us exchange anxious glances. So much for a break.
Ashton, that might be...
Gather everything.
No questions asked. They waste no time getting to work, piling up the documents we've been reading through. Even Isabella's unusually silent as she gathers everything in her arms, her own movements sharp and precise, a deep furrow in her brow. There's fear, but something hardened and urgent overshadows it. But the moment doesn't last. Before we can even finish, another noise ups the tension already gripping the place. Suddenly, the lights go out, and the wardrobe at the end of the room rattles, as if it doesn't look like the lights have gone out, as if something inside begs for freedom. Cautiously, eyes glued to it, I take a step forward. I release the lock from my gun. I'm no trigger-happy person. I'm not even sure if this will work on a ghost. But right now, its smooth surface against my palm, the trigger on my finger, provides the closest thing I have to relief as I approach the closet. Why would you approach the closet?
Ashton, what are you doing?
We have everything. We should just...
worried as they both are. They immediately stop at the slightest raise of my hand. But the edge is there, while they all huddled in the space between the door and the room. In case this goes south, whatever I hide inside, they have enough time and space to run from their position. And 2 deep breaths, I crossed the room and stood in front of the closet. Well, in this episode here, we'll see what's in the closet in the next episode. I'm Tater Cat. If you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe. Have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon.